the woodwork, because maybe some of them, now they're identifiable, can be swayed and spoken to and converted, or put right, not converted. They shouldn't have to be converted. But you know, I mean, my dad, for example, in 1967, I was 4 years old. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, about nearly 4 years old. And I remember there were 6 of us kids. He knocked Cowell on the television with the Rivers of Blood speech, and he marched us all into the living room on our black and white telly to watch it. Listen to this guy. Listen to him, how much sense he's making. And I was a baby.
Yeah.
What was he thinking?
They're not.
It's a different generation. And my father was a really intelligent bloke. He was a monster in many ways, but he was very clever. But I don't, they say, oh, it's a generational thing. No, it's not. Even if it is a generational thing, and you are 60 or 70 or 80 and you're racist, in this day and age, you should know that it's wrong. They used to burn women at the stake 200 years ago. We know that's wrong, because they said they were witches.
Absolutely. And now people are paying for witches now, aren't they?
I know. I'm thinking of changing careers.
Yeah, I mean, as you said quite rightly, it's education. It's about understanding why it's there and how it's become crept upon us without us even realizing so much. You've got the extremes that we obviously see, you know, and they're the ones that are obvious, and we kind of always ignored it. We never saw the red flag. We've always ignored it. But the underlining of it is that prejudice that we are not recognizing and not seeing, unless you're that person of color. Yeah. But yeah, like quite rightly, as you said, now we are seeing it. We do know it, and that's why it's hard at the beginning, because for us, when I say us, for those people not of color are not used to hearing or seeing this, so it's quite upsetting. So you know, we have to be people have to understand, you know, that we are in a mental health situation doing this, and people will turn around people of color and say, well, imagine how we feel, it's all our life. Absolutely, you know, but please, you know, take and bear in mind, you know, this is quite tough, and we need to work together here, because we've got friends, relatives who are literally having discussions with, who are disagreeing with, and you can have your disagreement and then fine, you can carry on, but it's that disagreement where actually the person is saying, you know, that person is not worthy of anything, he's not equal to me in life. Then your heart is like, how can I be with that person who thinks or talks that way?
I know. Unbelievable. You know, and as a kid, it was always prevalent in my household when, you know, my father and my mother, even my mother, not so much my mother, because she was very suppressed by him, and she didn't have many opinions around him. But I remember it being in the air, the ether, the atmosphere, the whole time throughout my childhood. And right from the get-go, from when I didn't speak until I was 3, because I was so traumatized. I had what was called selective mutism. But I knew what was going on. I knew everything that was going on. I knew it was wrong. Even as a little girl who not long learned to walk, it just felt stinky to me, you know? Again, kids always know. Kids, we can't fool a kid. Just lately, I've tried my very, very best to live by the ethos that to stand by and do nothing when you see a wrong being done is to be complicit, you know. And I've always believed that, but lately, I think since what's happened in my life, it's just come to the fore. You realise your mortality, you know. Sorry.
No, it's perfectly human, Jackie. I think, you know, I've had tears myself over it, and we're going to talk about why emotional as well. I mean, let's start off with about you, and you talked about your childhood.
Yeah.
And you brought up and you're saying that your father, you know, quite tough bringing up with those. So what made you? What got you to where, as a child, where did you go from coming out of that?
Well, I remember the moment as a kid, leading up to that moment. I didn't have a week in my life where there wasn't extreme violence. and not towards the kids. Well, my brothers were brutalised, but the girls weren't. Not much anyway. Shove or push. But I saw my mother in situations where I didn't think she was going to survive. I can't count every week, at least once a week. And I was 11 years old, lying in my bed, top bunk, and I said, you know what, God, if you get me out of this, just get me out of this situation. I promise I will live a good life, and I'll never put a child of mine through this. There should be, when there is domestic violence, it should be punishable by imprisonment. It should carry a sentence when people put their kids through this crap.
Yeah.
Because I'm 56 next month and I'm still not past it.
Yeah. And the psychological effect is long lasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really do think, I mean, they say, oh, it's the police come along, because that used to happen as well. It's really embarrassing. Past the age of about 7 or 8, you realise how embarrassing it is. But they don't, even now, there's always domestic, in and they're having indoor, disputes. They don't, very rarely do people think, well, the kids are not getting beaten up, so we're not going to intervene. But emotional abuse is every bit as insidious as physical abuse, if not worse.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if somebody sees the bruises on you, so they're going to try and help you, or some you break a leg and it could have been mum or dad that did it, somebody's going to intervene. But not when you're having emotional abuse. I don't think most people who've had the good fortune to not have that in their lives realise what it does. It's horrendous. And I don't, honestly, there's no self-pity here. I am so grateful for my lot. I don't feel sorry for myself. I feel so bloody grateful. But, at the same time, I'll never get past it, I don't think, not completely.
So what would you say to those who are right now in a situation, especially the partner, man or woman, who has been in a relationship, and especially when we've had the lockdown, we know now, we're hearing, and there's been a massive, and there was a worry this was going to happen, there's been a massive violence in there. But what would you say to, if you met one of those people now and they were in distraught and needed some support on that, is there anything you'd feel that you could say to them? I'd say to them, it's 2020, that it's not like it used to be. There are places and people you can turn to. If you are being beaten and your children are witnessing it, you are as complicit as the person who's beating you for the damage to that child. Yeah. Yeah. Because you are being you're being a party to it. If you just, when he goes to sleep or she goes to sleep or they go to work and you've got your chance, run and take that kid with you. Yeah. Because for years I didn't forgive my mother. But this was, I'm going back to the 70s now, 60s, 70s, late 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, so they made sure they screwed us all up before they divorced. But I was angry with my mother because, and I said to her one day, I was about 6, so Susie, my younger sister, would have been 5. And I said, Mommy, why do you stay with Daddy, when he does what he does to you, when he hits you? And she said, well, it's his temper and I love him and I know deep down he loves me. And my little sister piped up, 5, and said, Mommy, if somebody hits you, it means they don't like you. Wow. Wow. So if you think he or she loves you when they're hitting you, you're wrong, mate. Yeah. Because you don't hit somebody you like, much less love. But as you said, back then, there probably wasn't many choices either. She took us, 3 or 4 of us wanted to go with her. She took flights once and I went with her. We got on the bus, no car. And she took us to her parents' house. And her father was really weird. My grandfather was really weird. So it was frying pan into the fire, So she just went back home again. And she did try. She did try once or twice. And she knew it was wrong because she'd been through hell as a child as well. But that's another thing, it perpetuates. Water will find its level. My mother was, the oldest thing in her memory, the thing that went furthest back in her memory was abuse. So she drifted towards an abusive situation. And somehow abusers can smell it on their victims before they become a victim, and the victims can smell it on their abusers. And they are destructively drawn to each other, irresistibly drawn to each other. Mm.
I'm convinced of that because it's what they know, and it's a lazy way out, but it's very human to drift towards that which you know.
Almost the when they talk about the opposites attract.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is something you invariably you look into a relationship, and I've studied it. You know, I'm expert on Google, but if you look into it to any extent, you will find if you've got an abusive parent, or two parents, they both used to get at it sometimes, and then the child will go out. He or she will then repeat that vicious circle. Will definitely, not definitely, because I didn't. I didn't. I never did.
Yeah.
But I did have the rage in me when I was young. I had rage in me, and I thought about it, but you just don't, you know.
Well, so I have studied a little bit of psychology on that side of things, and you're absolutely right. When you look at a woman, for example, who has grown up with domestic violence or psychological domestic, issues with the parent,
Yeah.
that person, especially if it's the father, that girl grows up to be a woman, actually looks for the same person.
I was married right before Robbie, and
Yeah.
I did exactly that. But I woke up twice. I got married really quickly in quick succession. But again, I had a mental breakdown when I was 18, because I come out of this childhood, got married straight away to the first local boy. You know, I thought it was a new dress. It's a day out. You know, I had no idea what marriage was. So
Okay.
I got married to him. He was horrible. It turned out he liked drugs. He liked alcohol. So anyway, one morning I woke up, I looked at the ceiling, and I thought, you know what? No, this is not going to happen. I have not been put here to be your punch bag. And I just walked. I left everything I owned, just the clothes I stood up in, the flat, it was rented, but I still, all my furniture, every cup, I just walked. And I did that twice.
Wow.
Twice. Left. And the second time I owned the bloody property.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I know people will say it's materialistic, but at the end of the day, it's
I'm not material, not in the slightest. Stuff doesn't mean anything. If I cared more about money, I'd be a lot richer than I am.
Well, I think a lot of us are the same thing, aren't they? If I, what is the saying? You know, if someone gave me a penny for every time I would turn around and help someone and do this and do that, it's very much we talk about now about say no to being so helpful to people, which is not the case. It should be. It should be about being stronger and definitely being able to ask for help yourself.
Absolutely. I'm very bad at that, but I'm getting better.
Yeah. And that is a very difficult thing, especially for helpers. And I'm coming from the same wavelength as you. As someone who likes to help people, who likes to be always has been there. It's just part of you. That's the way you are. It's not something that you do, but you realise you've been doing it all the time, but you actually can't do the opposite by actually asking for help.
No.
You always do
Weird,
things.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is weird.
That's so weird.
I'm talking today about being in my 50s and I'm only really grasping the fact about the advantages of asking for help and how empowering it is to yourself as well as others. Because if you ask others for help, as people ask you, how do you feel? Because when you go and help someone, you feel great, don't you?
Absolutely.
And it's great they asked you. Great that you can help and support them, and that's what they want as well. And I think it's just because you're not used to that, and it's become a habit.
Mind you, there is the opposite flip side to that coin, to be devil's advocate, that sometimes you help, and when you're in crisis yourself, there is an exodus,
Okay.
And people don't want to help you back. So
Right.
Not everyone, but there are more people like that than there are like you and me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I guess on a positive, well, the glass half full, you get to know who your real friends are.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And we're gonna let's lead to we'll start off with your story. So I went to Google you on to actually look at the X Factor. We're going to come to that, but before I came up, there's this chap called Barry.
Barrymore?
Barrymore. And he was up there, and I thought, really? So I put it on, and there you were.
Yeah,
And
so yeah,
I'm going to play a little clip of what
There we
you
are,
were doing.
Jackie and Becky. I know you're going to enjoy this, so relax and enjoy it. There we are. Does he love you?
I've known about you for a while now. When he leaves me, he wears a smile now. Wherever he...
with me and my stepdaughter.
Is that your stepdaughter?
Yeah, she looks like me, doesn't she?
Now what was interesting is when you so on the clip there, I was showing the part where you were singing together,
Yes.
which is great. But also there was a bit you actually said, well, I want a contract, but if I don't get a contract, it's fine. Life's good.
Yeah.
You've been the
Like
same.
that. It's exactly how I feel to this day. I mean, I used to chase the stars, you know, and the reason I came to London in the first place, I was then with my second husband, and I thought, I'm going to dump your ass. So I got this, the only way I could get it to London was to get a job training to manage a pub. I went to Knightsbridge, a pub called Tattersall's Tavern on the corner of Knightsbridge Green, and you could get room and board and learn your craft. But I didn't want to be a publican. I wanted to be a singer, but I wanted to be in London. All part of my master plan. And that's when I met Robbie, you know, that's it. So I'm glad I came to London. Because
So you met your second husband.
Oh, my third, darling.
Your third husband. Okay, let's skip the others. So
I was only 22 when I met him, or a month before I became 22. So I did things very quickly. But you know, I didn't want to be married twice before I met Bobby. That just because I was so weak emotionally, and I just went along with it. All right, then, get married. All right, you know, I didn't ever thought about it, but I thought very, very carefully when I met Bobby. Poor sod. Yeah,
It's always the case, though, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Always the case, because he's possibly because he gave you that time to think about it. He gave you
absolutely, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He was the most amazing man, honestly.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Bobby in a moment. I mean, Bobby has been a very strong part of your life. So just tell us first of all, how did you get to the point of X Factor? Because we know that you so it Stars in Your Eyes, right? It was called.
Yeah. No,
so we know you went.
No, I went Barrymore twice or three times. What happened was that Michael Barrymore. Did you read about his demise? What happened to him? What he did?
Yeah. Oh yes, yes.
It was all very, very big in the press. And I thought, just my bloody luck. I get my break, and then he goes and does something like that. But anyway, and I do feel sorry for him. It's the drugs that put him that way. And the second or third time on television with him, he was off his face, and it was so sad. And now the editors, they're amazing. It made him look normal. And we were in the studio thinking, what is he on, you know? But this program came on television, X Factor, and I watched it every year, and it got less and less interesting as the years. And I didn't like the fact that they used to take the mick out of people who were challenged, so it put me right off the thing. But I said to myself, one day I'm going to sing for Simon Cowell, and he's going to say I'm good. And if I make my mind up to something, I usually, without breaking the law or hurting people, I usually get what I want.
Okay.
It might take a long time, but that's how I'm still alive, I think. So anyway, I thought one day, maybe next year. Finally, I thought, get your finger out, girl, and go and see what it's like. So off I went to the X Factor auditions. Didn't think I'd get anywhere. I know how these things work, okay? Before a note is sung, they have chosen the winner, and it has to be that way because they're making good telly.
Yeah.
Has to, and if you don't understand that, you shouldn't go near it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get disappointed. I saw people in bloody bits because they thought I was going to win. Yeah, right. So anyway, so all I want to do is I want the crack. I want to see what it's all about, and I want to sing for Simon Cowell and for him to say I'm good. That's the only agenda I had when I went there.
Yeah, cool.
All of that, and I didn't have any management or representation, or nothing was fixed for me. And when I had that standing ovation that night in that arena, I couldn't bloody believe it. I blew my socks off. I couldn't honestly believe it. But like I said, and then I went backstage afterwards. Oh, let me go back. So before I go on, I'm standing backstage. Robbie Williams is one of the judges. Now, to this point, I'd always thought he was a wally. I got two girls who grew up thinking, oh yeah, Robbie Williams, and he was drinking, he was taking drugs, and he was every mother's nightmare. But that's what a rock star does. They're supposed to make the kids love them and the parents hate them. Job done. You know, so it becomes to my right. He comes marching through with his entourage and his minders, and right, I've got to get in his corner. To this point, this is very contrived of me. I looked at him straight in the eyes. He looked straight at me, and I went, "Wow!" And I wasn't thinking, "Wow," I'm thinking, "Wally." That's what I was thinking. Right. So when he looked at me, and he sort of went, "Yeah," because he's got this swagger. He's a lovely bloke. When you got that much money and that much fame, you're gonna have a swagger.
Yeah.
And he got famous when he was only 16, right? But his heart is in the right place. I found that out afterwards. Right. So he's walking. I'm thinking, right, he's in my corner when I get out there. 40 odd years, Stephen, I've been doing this.
I was going to say, where did you pick all this up from?
No, that's because I know the business, and I know that I want to make him think before I get out there that I'm a fan, at least a fan, you know.
Absolutely.
Which I wasn't.
He doesn't know that show business.
Exactly, and he'd forgive me if he found out. But anyway, so when I walked out on stage, I knew exactly what I was doing. And I knew, they said, tell him you're nervous. It'll make him love you more. So I thought, I'm not nervous. I didn't have that much nerves. Not that much. Afterwards, I thought, geez, how did I just do that? You know. Anyway, so I walked out, and if I'm going to act slightly eccentric, I'll tell him I'm nervous, which I did. And I'll tell him, I don't want a sob story. Everybody's got a sob story, Stephen. Everybody's has lost someone. Everybody's suffered, you know. We're all warriors. But I thought, I'm going to tell him about the farm, which is where we lived at the time. And I knew they'd have a giggle about it. And I knew that I could see exactly how they were going to edit this. You know, so anyway, the rest is history. I did the performance. But when I saw the reaction from the crowd is something, it's just a bigger crowd than I was used to. Yeah. It's just another club or another retirement village or another, you know, venue. It's just more people in it. Yeah. It felt a bit special because the last time I was there, Whitney was there, you know. But I didn't think it was anything particularly special. Just a good crack, a bloody good crack, you know. And so the reaction of the crowd was something I had manipulated myself, because that's what entertainers are supposed to do, get into their bones, you know. But the reaction of the judges wasn't because they thought I was particularly fantastic. It was because they thought she's going to end up on the telly box, and we've got a show. It's because we thought she was so good. So I'm not flattering myself.
No.
Because I just did that, you know, great. I felt fantastic when they did, because I thought, oof, that's a step closer to actually going on air, you know. Because anyway, so that's show business. But I did realise, so backstage then there was a beautiful black girl. I forget her name now. Claire Angel, I think. Beautiful, beautiful girl. And she got through to the 6-chair challenge like I did, and she sang like a piano and voice only version of Bridge Over Troubled Water, and it was so stunning. I nearly died. It was so good, and I thought, God, girl, you know, what a voice. And anyway, so she got eliminated, and I was sitting backstage. I don't know,
really?
10 minutes. Yeah. It's all fixed. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So I'm sitting backstage in the loser's corner, eating crisps. She came out and she was distraught, and I said, listen, darling, it was never yours to win. No, you're going to get 1 million hits on YouTube. And that's payment enough. You know, this was never your prize to win, sweetheart. This is not a personal slight. You were amazing. And she calmed down a little bit, you know. But, yeah, so where was I going with that? So that was backstage.
Yeah, leading up to Robbie.
Okay. So this is what I do. I got fragmented brain. Yeah, oh yeah. So I'll tell you about this, maybe to come back to me in a minute. So now I finished. I come off stage. My kids are backstage. Vicky's there as well, my stepdaughter. And I think I'd forgotten. Robbie said, "Oh, can I have a cuddle later?" I'd forgotten all about that. I thought, yeah, right, like you ever would. So anyway, I come backstage, and I was buzzing because it had all gone so well. And he actually came, tapped me on the shoulder, and he'd be there for his cuddle, you know. And I thought, my kids just, and now I'm thinking my kids are going to think this is so cool. You know? I don't care about him. But to me, he's just a bloke. I've never been struck. He's just a bloke with more money than I've got, you know.
Yeah.
And and money means nothing to me. So my kids got this lovely photos with him, and I was so thrilled for them, not me, for them. And I did know at that point, they hadn't told me as much, because lots of great singers and lots of great actors who get those standing ovations end up on the cutting room floor. There are dozens like that, dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
And they decide what makes good. Oh yeah, that's where I go back to the point. Right. The phone-in vote. Okay?
Yeah.
So you go to the 6-chair challenge. Now they have to decide that anyone like me, who could win perhaps the public hearts, or anyone who is anything like a vocal threat to their chosen one, has to be gone at that point, because they can't manipulate the phone vote because it's computers, you see?
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking, oh God, I want to go home. And now they're going to send you all now a fodder. They're going to take you all on a plane out to America, knowing, you know, I've got a chance of winning, because the chosen one is chosen. So, and it's all about launching that particular person through that series. And so I'm thinking, I don't want to go to America. Please don't. You know, I just, because I know I'm not going to win.
But at this point, you didn't want to win as well. Is
No,
that...
this definitely. And I knew I was. No, at this point, not only did I not want to, I knew I wasn't going to.
Right. Okay.
Because I know, and I knew they'd chosen as well. He walked through the holding room a couple of times. Fabulous singer, gorgeous black bloke, beautiful man, and he thoroughly deserved to win. They never pick anybody crap. They're always really good.
Right.
You know,
I hope so.
Fiona Lewis for a start, Sam Bailey. You know, they're all good. The ones they choose, they've got something.
All I could think about was how proud Bobby would be of you and your peacocks at the farm. And I was just falling in love with that moment for you, and falling in love with you, and falling in love with my husband. And I just want to say, I think you're incredible.
Actually, Stephen, you know, fame is not a very kind animal. Fame corrupts, and it pulls apart marriages and families and lives. And and I've got quite an addictive personality. You know, I drink too much wine, and I laugh too loud, and
you can never laugh too loud.
So, which is why, in a way, it's good that I never did break through. You know, it's good because there was a point where I thought, no, I'd rather have children and keep my feet on terra firma. You know, so because there was a point when Bobby and I were thinking of having kids together, and I thought, well, that was a kiss goodbye to, you know, if you want to bring them up normally, by you know, to the two of you. So that was a conscious choice I made. And I'm very glad, because the oldest one recently qualified as a midwife. She now works at the NHS at the JR here in Oxfordshire, John Radcliffe. And the younger one had a 10-year career in banking, but then she met this wonderful man. She got divorced when she's quite young, 2 kids. And she's met this fabulous bloke, and they're now married, and she's living the life of Riley.
Brilliant. That's really good. I mean, that's all you want as a parent, isn't it?
And neither of my children are racist. Not an ounce of it. And so you couldn't pay me enough for how I feel about that.
Good. And they will have their own children, or they'll have their own family around them.
Yeah, they do. And you know, my daughter, the younger one, the 2 kids she has, they're all vegan. It's all, and she studies it. It's not just, it's a total way of life. I could never have the patience for it, but she studies it, and they take extra vitamins, and they are taught all about the planet and the animals and what happens, why you shouldn't drink milk, because what happens, the way the cows are treated. Every year they have a baby that's torn away from them. So you know, she has brought her children, and then in that mix, racism doesn't even come into the picture.
Yeah, that's good.
You don't even have to say, don't say that it's racist. Is it just?
Yeah. And that's what it's about. Now, I want to go back to you though. I want to go back to, because you were saying about you know, not making it you know, being sensible, but actually that's not quite true, because it's a different way of viewing it. But when I met you, I was an events manager at the time.
Yeah.
And I met you at, I don't remember the first time we met, but we met at one of the events, and it was at a retirement village.
Yeah.
And you sang there, and the audience, who the retirees, who were people independent living, they lived in their own home, but it's like what some people would describe it as a cruise.
Exactly, that's a very good word for it.
Yeah. But you come along and you're singing one of the events that we put on, which is on weekly and that, and it's special because when you came along and sang, people always packed in there, and you sang from your heart, and they felt it in their hearts, and they always remembered you. You loved them, they loved you. So you still are a successful singer. Oh,
thank you. I do think in those terms sometimes, though, because if you are in demand, then you are successful.
Absolutely.
In any job.
And you were. I mean, you wasn't probably a week unless you chose that you weren't working.
That's right.
You know, you're pretty booked. I know I've had to book sometimes 6 months to a year in advance, and that is a successful successful artist.
Yes, that's right.
Something I've been part of is my intuition, and that's come from growing up a lot more with women. Funny enough, and
that's so true.
Yeah, but
Consistently.
It's interesting that that's got stronger and more powerful because that's what we have to rely on.
Yeah.
You know, and now we have a little bit more understanding of things, but we rely on intuition is something that people should never underestimate. They should use more and believe in it more.
Well, do you know what? You just struck a chord with me, because I believe you should never underestimate anyone in any circumstance, whether it be underestimate how horrible they can be, or how nice they can be, or how clever they are. Never underestimate anyone, because everyone has got the power to shock you and amaze you and please you. You know, everyone. So if you go around underestimating anyone for whatever reason, you're going to come a cropper.
Good one. Yeah, absolutely correct. So, talk about underestimating. As you were saying, you were being a singer, and you know, an artist. You have your family. You've been through all sorts of things and experienced all sorts of things. Children have grown up. I'm very proud of them. I didn't meet your husband. I didn't really know anything about your husband, Bobby.
No.
But you obviously, so married Bobby, you moved to Oxford.
Yeah.
And
no, London first. We stayed in London for a while.
Okay.
We ran a pub. We had a tenancy in Stockwell, or we used to call it St. Ockwell, because it's a bit rough from there. And it was only half a mile from Brixton. God, it was rough. But we were very successful there, made loads of money. And then we made various moves. We ended up in Oxford in 2009. And we've, how long is that? God, it's 2020 now. Flipping heck, how did that happen?
Well, 2020 is the 2020 or 2020 is now the new number of 13 or treble 6.
I know. Tell me about it.
We've not completed 2020 yet.
Yeah, I know, because I can't wait to see the back end of this blinking year. But you know, it's just it's happened to everyone, hasn't it? It's you know, we're all in good company. You know, in a way, the pandemic did me a few favors, because I was able to be on my own with Bobby, you know, to the end.
Well, let's roll back there a bit, Jackie. Why? So that I'll just understand. So, Bobby was diagnosed with cancer.
It went on for 6 years.
And when was he diagnosed with cancer?
The first diagnosis was prostate cancer.
Yeah.
That was about 6 years ago.
6 years.
Got past that, and the treatment and everything that goes with it.
Okay.
Then there was problems with his colon, so he ended up having a colostomy. Long story. All the treatment again, cancer treatment again.
Yeah.
And then his last time he didn't make it, so
Well,
because it is spread everywhere.
so I know this story because you did something, I'm not going to say it's unique, but it was very special. And that's kind of where we kind of got back in touch as well. Although I was connected with you on Facebook, I don't,
Yeah.
and me, there was very much active on it.
Yeah,
But you started a journal
I did. Yeah.
through Facebook,
Yeah.
and you started talking about your stories, and one of the, as your daily stories about what you were doing, how Bobby was doing, but you
Yeah.
put it in such a poetic way.
I get that from my grandmother.
Okay,
She was a published poet,
right,
and I've always been able to express myself with the written word.
okay,
I don't have an amazing vocabulary. I'm probably just about above average intelligence, but I do have the ability to grab you with the written word.
right. So when you're
Yeah.
doing this, what was Bobby? Obviously, he's aware that you're writing these things. What was
Yeah.
his thoughts? What was your conversation between each other?
About the Facebook thing.
Yeah.
I just used to say to him, I'm telling everybody how we're doing today. And he used to call it face ache, he couldn't stand Facebook. He said, whatever floats your boat, I really don't mind, And obviously there were very personal details that I didn't include in this journal that I was writing out of respect for Bobby, But it was more about my emotions and getting them out because of the pandemic, and I couldn't go out on the shops and people watch and not like it used to be anyway. But I did tell him about it. I told him I was telling people about it. But he always encouraged me to write, you see. He said, you should be writing. You should definitely be writing. And people say to me, when you speak or write, people notice and people listen.
Yeah.
So I will eventually, come here. So I will eventually write a short book, I think.
Yeah, you should do.
I'm not looking to get it. It probably won't get published, but I like to get my feelings out like that,
Yeah. Well, let's see, because on Facebook, those who come on Facebook, I want to first of all give them a bit of a shout out because there were many people on there who supported you.
Yeah, they did.
Nice messages, very supportive, genuine support, and it made me feel, this is real human. You're doing this every day. Some people, it can be kind of, that. What another message, but they were non-stop on Facebook every day.
Yeah,
feeding that back.
And I try not to be repetitive because, I like to write it down because it does me good. It definitely does me good. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. And there are now about half a dozen, maybe 10 women on my Facebook who have had the same or very similar experience.
Okay.
Losing their partners, their life partners, and and it resonates with them, obviously. And even if you lost your mum or your dad, it's not the same as losing your life partner, but it's still a dreadful, dreadful loss.
Yeah.
And when they read my feelings, I know by the feedback I get that they are connecting and they are saying, yeah, that's how it feels. I wish perhaps I'd said it or thought it, or I was thinking it, I just didn't articulate it. They probably could if they tried, but that's why there are several reasons why I do it, and I don't enjoy it exactly because sometimes I'm in floods when I do it, and I don't think, oh, what would sound good now? I don't think like that. Well, how should I put this? Sometimes I'll delete it and start it again because it sounds a bit gobbledygook. But what you're reading on my Facebook is genuinely how I'm feeling. I'm not trying to impress you or upset you.
No.
It
comes across that exactly what you just explained.
Yeah,
it does come across it out, and
I highly recommend it if you're going through something, and even if you're not as good at expressing your feelings with the written word as I am and other people like me, you should still do it. Write it in a journal. Get your feelings down.
Yeah.
If you don't want to share it on Facebook, fair enough.
Yeah.
But you should get your feelings down if you're all pent up.
Yeah, I 100%, Jack, because you have to get that out because it becomes more of a bigger thing inside once it's out there, actually seems better, and it doesn't seem such a drama with it.
Yeah. And it's a side effect. If it helps anybody else, one person, and it's a side effect, then it's a very, very happy side effect indeed.
Yeah, and you're absolutely helping them. I hope those who are on your group, Facebook, are actually feel that there's not only supporting, but they're being supported as well.
Yes, and that's very much how I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good. It's a good life coaching tip there. Is definitely journal. Journals are good anyway because it keeps you in track of a journey, what you want to take, without swerving.
I look back now, Stephen, to prior to Bobby's passing, and I see how far I've come.
Yeah, and when you did pass, you didn't stop there. You did continue.
There was a couple of days.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
of course. But I mean, you continue writing, and people still continue supporting. And how long? How long ago you passed away now?
May 25th.
May 25th.
Yeah,
not long ago.
Not at all.
But again, you've been very articulate the way you coming across what you're doing. Now you're talking about things, but instead of now you're talking about what's going on with Bobby and yourself and what you're doing, you're actually talking to Bobby.
Yes.
In this scenario.
That just happened organically.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. It is really interesting because it's like, we all would do the same thing when we talk to them, whether it's in our heads or do something, and some may feel comfortable doing it, some are not. But I think you're actually breaking those barriers for some people and going, you can do it in the open like that.
We're so crap in this country at death. We are so bad at it.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it. We don't know about it. We don't learn about it. It's as kids we should. I always had pets, animal crackers when I was a little girl. Right throughout my childhood, I had guinea pigs, hamsters, rabbits. I had a couple of wild crows that I found, and raised them until they flew away afterwards. But we should teach our kids about the circle of life, and that the end. The circle doesn't end because the circle doesn't end, but in that circle there will be death. My little grandchildren came in almost every day to see Bobby and watched him, gradually fade, and they're okay with it. They still think about it and they're still upset sometimes, but I think we played that one well. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if you did done that and educated the children rather than no, don't go and see him, and it's an all very, you're manifesting a different picture.
The children will imagine something far worse than death. Yeah. If you don't teach them about actual death.
Yeah.
And countries like India, they've nailed it. Mexico, they've got it. They've sussed it. It's a little bit weird to us in the West here, but because we just don't. Our way of dealing with it is not dealing with it.
No. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we do need to learn a lot more about it.
It's still upsetting, even though, it's still horrible and upsetting, but not because I don't like the idea of death. That's not what upsets me and gets me emotional. It's just the goneness that gets me.
Yeah. And they say, well, it's the same it's those you leave behind, not the person who died.
Yeah. He wasn't afraid. I asked him many times, are you afraid? And he said no. And he never lied, so I know he wasn't afraid. Yeah. Which does give me some comfort.
Yeah. And I'm glad.
There were moments leading up to it where like there was an advert on telly one day, and it was about dementia charity, and we were sitting here in the living room watching telly together, and I was holding his hand, and I said, darling, I'm so glad you didn't go down that route. I'm so glad you didn't get dementia. I see it every day in these care homes I sing in, and it's tragic. It's like, I would be saying to myself, if I was one of those sufferers, die already, But anyway, watching this advert on telly, and I said, darling, I'm so pleased that didn't happen to you, that you didn't get dementia, and I didn't have to lose you like this. And he turned to me and he said, who the hell are you? So he still had his humour. And I said to him another time, I said, we never talk about the funeral. We need to talk about funeral, Bobby. You know, what kind of casket would you like? Do you want to be cremated? Or we never talked about it. 33 years we're together. And he said, look, I don't care. He said, what you get for a coffin? He said, the way I'm shrinking, they can stick me in a shoebox. So he never, until he, you know, till the very end, he never lost his humour.
No, that's really nice to hear, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you're right,
Yeah.
dementia, as you know, works with people with dementia, and
Yeah.
it isn't a very nice disease. It's, again,
I've seen, I can't count the times in the care homes I sing in. There's no money in it, Stephen. You might get 60 quid, 70 quid, something like that, you know. And that'll pay your petrol and lunch that day, you know. So, and I try to stay within a certain radius of home so that it's not, doesn't cost too much to do it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've seen people who don't know their husband or wife or children. Everyone in the world is a stranger. The person taking care of their most intimate needs is a stranger. Imagine living in a world like that where you don't know anyone, including the person who married you or the person you gave birth to. How scary must that be when you get your all-inclusive moment? You know? Teach our kids about the circle of life, and that at the end, the circle doesn't end because the circle doesn't end. But in that circle, there will be death. Mm. You know, I mean, my little grandchildren came in almost every day to see Bobby and watched him, you know, gradually fade, and they're okay with it. They still think about it and they're still upset sometimes, but I think we played that one well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if you did done that and educated the children rather than no, don't go and see him, and it's an all very, you're manifesting a different picture.
The children will imagine something far worse than death. Yeah. If you don't teach them about actual death.
Yeah.
And countries like India, they've nailed it. Mexico, Mexico, they've got it. You know, they've sussed it. It's a little bit weird to us in the West here. But because we just don't, our way of dealing with it is not dealing with it.
No. Yeah, I know you're right. I mean, we do need to learn a lot more about it.
It's still upsetting, even though, you know, it's still horrible and upsetting, but not because I don't like the idea of death. That's not what upsets me and gets me emotional. It's just the goneness that gets me.
And they say, well, it's the same as it's those you leave behind, not the person who died.
Yeah. He wasn't afraid. I asked him many times, are you afraid? And he said no. And he never lied, so I know he wasn't afraid. Yeah. Which does give me some comfort.
Yeah. And I'm glad.
There were moments leading up to it where there was an advert on telly one day, and it was about dementia charity, and we were sitting here in the living room watching telly together, and I was holding his hand, and I said, darling, I'm so glad you didn't go down that route. You know, I'm so glad you didn't get dementia. I see it every day in these care homes I sing in, and it's tragic. It's like, you know, I would be saying to myself, if I was one of those sufferers, die already, you know. But anyway, watching this advert on telly, and I said, darling, I'm so pleased that didn't happen to you, that you didn't get dementia and I didn't have to lose you like this. And he turned to me and he said, who the hell are you?
Well, listen, we've had a fabulous time talking and known a lot more about you, Jackie. I'm going to leave you one more question here, and that is, you spoke about writing a book.
Yeah.
But naturally, you are a singer. Is there something about you writing a song?
Well, somebody recently, a keyboard player, wrote a piece of music and put it on his Facebook. And it was very, very melodious, very beautiful piece of music, only 2.5 minutes long. And I messaged him, this was just before Bobby died. And I said, I'd like to put a lyric to that. Because I've written lots of poetry, loads and loads of poetry, that I keep to myself. But a poem isn't exactly the same as a song because it needs like a middle eight and a you know, and a hook. When a poem doesn't, every verse is different. But so I am going to attempt to write a song, with the lyric of a song anyway. And so watch this space.
Brilliant. Well, definitely, we'll look out for that. That's something to watch out for you. Definitely.
It's hard at the moment, but it's hard to get to, you know, because I'm so emotional most of the time right now. But I visit it every now and again and spend 10 minutes having a little think to myself. Well, that would sound good, you know. You've got to think in rhythm when you're writing the lyric of a song. You know, da, 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 da. You've got to find words that'll fit that stanza, as it were. So anyway, we'll see. I've never written a song before.
No.
Never say never.
No, definitely. And we look forward to it. And I'm sure those who are your Facebook contacts will also look forward to that.
Yeah. They keep saying, "Oh, I'll buy your book," but I know I'll never get it published. What I will do is I will make many copies, maybe 50 copies, and as the years go by, I'll give them out as Christmas gifts and things like that.
Well, let's see. We'll see. I mean, we've got. I know many people who in sort of publishing. We've got ebooks as well. So, you know, depending how many words there are. You've got others who will be copywriters. So many people can do things for you. So, well, that's where you need the support. You know, where
I have been surprised at the effect I seem to have had with my Facebook posts. That has surprised me in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, and I've really tried very hard throughout it all not to be, oh, poor me. I'll tell you how sad I am.
No, and I don't think you've come across old for me. I think you've, like you said, you used the word articulate. You've come across very well.
Good.
And people have been very supportive. And as you quite said, you've had quite a few on your contacts who are also going through similar situations. Yeah. So to them, you know, wish them well and support, and obviously let them know that we're all out there for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, even if we don't know each other, you know, something like that. Yeah. You can't articulate it. Just put it in your own words. Right? Brilliant. Well, Jess, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, my lovely.
It's been a joy, and I hope all of your followers will enjoy it. And if they want to find you and chat with you, maybe about their own personal things, that's something they can do?
Yes, so I often get private messages already. And then another one of the reasons I started my log, my journal, was because people were concerned about me and leaving me private messages. And I was going over the same thing again and again and again, every day, just after Robbie died, and going over it and explaining to someone 12 times, 15 times, wasn't doing me any good.
No.
So now I make my post and I move on to the next day.
Okay.
And everyone knows. You're welcome, my love.